Hello and welcome to Rosie's Preserving School pressure canning session on sausages this Saturday afternoon. Strangely, it's sausage meat more than sausages maybe, but I think it's one of the most useful things you can actually can, to be honest. You may not think it now, it may not be your kind of thing or your way of life, but it's certainly become part of our way of life. And I liked to use sausage meat because it hasn't got anything else in it. It is just sausage. It's just ground up meat, that the pork that they put into sausages, but it hasn't got lots of other things as well, usually, if you're careful about buying it. These have got a few spices and things, but I'm not going to add anything to it. I find it very difficult actually buying sausages these days. There are so many flavors, and usually I find they're far too strongly flavored for us. I just like a good pork sausage, really, quite plain. And I'm always a bit upset when it ends up being either super spicy or full of herbs or something like that, and then it's not what I'm expecting. So buy well, you know, try not to, I mean, you can get bargains and you can get things at farm shops and all that kind of thing. Shop well, and then what you will be canning will be all the better for it. The kind of mass-produced sausages in supermarkets and things aren't really going to do the job. I'm just going to take my watch off because I'm sure to get super messy. So we're going to get straight on with this because there's a bit to do before we start canning. I've got my canner on the hob, just warming up. It's not boiling madly. I don't want too much evaporation going on, but I don't want to wait too long for it to heat up either. I've got my jars, my seals, my lids ready, my stock. But for the first thing we're going to do is to cook the sausage meat to go into the jars. Now you've got two choices, really. I use one of these. You can make the shapes to go in the jar, flat sort of cakes or patties as they're called. And the best way to do that is to use either the lid, or if you've got rings, use that to cut out. You press the sausage meat into it and then turn it over and push it out, and then that will fit into the jar perfectly. Today I'm going to make mine into meatballs. I've got enough of the patty type, although I'll do one to show you. So I've got my sausage meat here. Take it out of its inevitable dish. Now, if you're making the sausage meat balls, you'll probably want to cut it down the middle and then cut it across so that you've got more or less equal sizes. If you're going to make the patties, then you're going to need enough to go into the shape. It does shrink slightly when it's cooking. I'm going to turn I'm all sticky now. I'm going to turn my hob on as well. I've actually got a dry pan because you don't want to end up with too much of the fat content of the sausage, the fat that comes out. You want to be able to separate those two. So get a dry pan heated up, and then you can get your sausage meat and press it into I've got a lid, or if you've got rings, you can press it into the ring. It is a good idea, but I found with the lids, it's slightly difficult getting it back out again because you can't push it from the other side. So I tend to just put the knife under it and take it out that way. And you can recover any of the shape that you've lost in the process. And so that will, for my jars, fit straight into the jar. That's it. So, but as I say, I'm going to make meatballs. So I'm going to cut this piece down the middle. and then cut it across so they're about this size, because they will shrink down a bit. Take those 2 bits off the end, and then I'm going to use my patty to make up more. And I find they've got absolutely lovely flavour. We sometimes have these just cooked with vegetables and a jacket potato or something as our meal, because they've got a very good flavour, especially the patties. You can do those, you can cook them as a breakfast, to go with a breakfast, a cooked breakfast, and everybody seems to like them. It's not something you see used very much these days, I don't think, in this way. Sausage meat, we used to have it a lot when I was a child as a you know, kind of main meal, but these days we sort of have to make everything into something much more complicated. So I'm just going to even up the size of these a bit. This is just the sort of job I hate. I hate getting really, really sticky. I always have done. I've never liked having messy hands or anything. And I don't know where that comes from, but my pan's not heating up very much at the minute. Turn it around a bit hotter. What we want to do is sort of brown these quite quickly. You don't need to cook them all the way through. The processing will cook the meat, but you don't want them sort of too pale and insipid looking. So if you brown them and then they keep their shape in the jar. Having said, there's 2 ways you can do this. Of course, you could just cook the sausage meat like you do minced beef. You can cook it loose. If that's something that you would use, then you can do all of this, but just fry the sausage meat, break it up into smaller pieces and just fry it quickly. No, so that's all day. I've got the finger now on the thumb. Jolly good. I haven't done that for a long time. And right, so how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm just going to go and wash my hands and mend my thumb while you carry on. Okay, we're all plastered up, so I should be okay. And I'm just going to put my first ones in to start cooking, which I'll have to keep an eye on while I'm making the rest. And I've got a bowl with some kitchen paper in here when they've kind of sealed, to just put them in to drain off as much of the fat as I can. Gosh, I haven't cut myself for ages. I did watch an episode of Saturday Kitchen one time where the chef did that, and he just carried on, and it was horrific. It was gross. So actually, it's much easier with the gloves on. I should have done that in the first place. So my sticky fingers problem. Of course, if you like, you know, flavoured sausages with, you know, chili ones or any of the varieties there are, you can use those. You can buy whole sausages and either cut them into rings or take the casings off and use it if you prefer. There's really no rule about what the sausage meat is. It's your personal preference, and I'm doing my personal preference, but it's it can be whatever you want it to be. I think these are great for children as well, because often, you know, sausages are just too big for them. So if they have a couple of these and some sauce of some sort, you know, if you're doing them with pasta or tomato sauce, or it's often just enough, and you don't have so much waste. If you make the patty style as well, I mean, you may want to make a mixture of the two. They're great on the barbecue as well in the summer, if we ever get any summer. So you can see they're difficult. Meatballs of any kind are difficult to brown evenly, but just so that they're sealed as much as possible, turn them over if you can, and keep it going so that they get some colour all the way around. Could have brought my tongs with me. I'll leave that one on that hand for the moment. So all the food is protected. I think the other thing that this does, if you've got them jarred up ready to use, you can drain off the liquid and reheat them in a pan like this. But you haven't got to stop before you cook anything else and fry off the meat or the sausage meat, which often puts me off recipes when I'm in a hurry. If you've got to do all this bit just to make something for tea, it's you know, it's all just too much. But if you have one session of doing it and they're all sitting there in their jars, you're ahead of the game, really. And that's what I'm always looking for these days, because it doesn't matter what your life is, there just doesn't seem to be as much time as there used to be for doing things like this. I think emails are a case in point. As soon as you get an email, you feel compelled to answer it. You know, we never did that before. You know, you'd never expected a response to anything immediately. And I think even that one aspect of life puts a tremendous pressure on things. I've got one friend who only reads emails on Sundays. She reads them and answers them. So, you know, you don't. It's I suppose you can do that, but of course we can't in business. You've got to be there. So there's my dish. I've got some kitchen paper in there. And then I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is use the knife, because I've forgotten my tongs, and just put them in the bowl like that. Brown those a bit more. I think that one's all right. Right, we had to start putting in So now I've got a raw hand and a cooked hand, so I can use my gloved hand to put the raw in. Oops, that was rolled all over the raw ones. I'll leave it there a bit longer. They're all getting processed anyway. See, there's hardly any fat coming out of these, so that's good. So it's a good quality sausage meat. I'm going to take this mat out of the way. That smells good. Yeah. Some of these are a lot bigger than others. Oh, what you could do if you were, wanting them more even, is to weigh them as you go. Make sure you cut them in even size pieces. But I'm not really that particular. Just down here. Until been warming. I'm aiming to make 7 jars, which is 1 layer today. I've got 500ml jars, which is fine for the 2 of us. If you want to put them in bigger jars, of course, do so. But I already have some of these on the shelf, so I'm not making a huge amount today. Right, that's the last turning, I think, of those. And then I think what I'm going to do is swap the hob down onto this lower hob here and take the pan off, so that, because it's better for the camera. So I'll have to ask my assistant, I think, to lift it down, and while I hold the frying pan in a moment. I'll put these all in together. Just give them another couple of minutes. Tissue ready for the jars. Especially if these are popular with your family, you can do a lot more. You could do two layers of jars and you know, really go for it so that you've got them stocked up. But you can see the pan there, I hope, and there's all very, very little fat in there, which is good. So if I just tip it, you can see there's about a teaspoonful out of all that meat, which is brilliant. So if we swap the pan over with the hob. Okay. So filling your jars, you need to be, you know, quite clever at kind of fitting them in with as few spaces as possible. I don't know how many are going to go in each jar. It depends on the size you've done them, but usually it's between 6 and 8. So that's 4, 5, 6 in that one. And you've got to be mindful of the headspace. So you don't want to be, you want to be leaving about 3 centimeters, 1 inch headspace. So just tuck them in as neatly as possible. Because this is for the 500 jar I'm talking about. If you've got bigger jars, obviously you'll get a lot more in. So let's see one of these smaller ones on the top. Three, 4, 5, and those 6. I'm not going to get 7 jars out of them, but it doesn't matter. I'll do what I've got. 2, 3, 4, 5, and that leaves 5 there. So I'll do another 5. When you're putting it in something or using it with something else, you don't actually, for 2 people, you don't need a huge great pile of them. Right. Now, and then you need to top them up to the right level. with your hot stock. I've got here my Vegemite. Don't worry if some of the meat is sort of sticking out a bit. It will be fine. They will cook down a bit in the jar and find their own levels. So I don't fuss with it too much. As long as you haven't got them squashed right up to the seal. Not quite enough. I'll get a bit more hot water for this one. Put that one up. So with something like this, it's really important to do your bubbling. Get your air pockets out. So just stick the end of your chosen implement into the jar in several spaces and just ease out any air that's lurking beneath the meatballs. It also eases them down into the jar as well. Oh, yeah, we're just doing this the sausage meat now, Jane, and then I'm going to show you after with the soup, or several things in actual fact. So
will the soup be in a separate pot then?
Good question. You could do it in a separate jars. You could chop it all up and process it with these. I was going to sort of show the soup mix with using the sausage meatballs and everything as a dish. But if you want to put ingredients that you've prepared in a separate jar, and then you can use your meat with it, combine the two together if you want to.
Yeah, so you could do a dish of sausage.
Yeah.
And then a dish of soup, or you could do half sausage, half soup, couldn't you? And can
you could do if you want to do that. Yeah,
that's what I'd got in my head. So
right, okay, go with that. It's absolutely
fine. I might just do that because
yeah, that's fine. So now we got to do the cleaning of the jars, the rims and the seals with our vinegar before we seal them up. I've got my tissue here, my paper, my dish of vinegar, which I'm going to wipe the tops of the jars with. And clean piece for the seals. In there. rings or lids on. I'm going to put the vinegar into the pan. Now I've got a nice new canner this week, as I gave my, or sent my other one to Rosie for her community course. So it's all pristine and shiny. So I've got 5 to go in there on the base. And if you're putting your soup mix in as well, then you're going to have more jars, and that's good.
Rosie,
Yeah,
with I'm just sorting your last lot of sausages.
yeah.
I thought it was not just the stock, it was the soup. So do I fry the onions and mushrooms first and add it to
Yeah, I hadn't realised that's how it came over. I was going to sort of use this to put in the soup, but it makes sense to do it as one as the, you know, in each jar if you want to. So yeah, just you just need to kind of colour them. You don't need to fry them till they're thoroughly cooked.
I can do it in the sausage.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah,
And shall I do it with
absolutely.
the tomatoes as well? So do the mushroom, tomatoes and
Yeah,
garlic.
you can put all of that in and make your mix.
Right.
I'm kind of I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. I've just been thinking about how I normally do it for what suits us, you know. But you're quite right. You can absolutely do that and mix it into each jar. Or you can do some plain sausage and some with the soup mix.
Yeah.
If I did that, my son would be in eating all the sausage ones and none of the soup ones. He'd be having them for snack.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to kind of cater for what happens in your family and what you need it for. And I guess that's what's in my head as well. That's what I've been doing. Anyway, you talk amongst yourselves while I try and get the lid on. There we go, first time. Oh, gosh. Except it won't close. What's that? You yeah. Can't do it with a gammy thumb and again. Just squeeze it now.
So how many of these little ones are we going to get in a can, or is it 2 rows of 5?
You can get 2 rows of 7, but 6 would be better because
Okay.
it's a bit tight with
Okay, we'll try 12.
7.
Try that one.
See how your mix spreads out.
Yeah, I think I'll do some that are just soup, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 that are sausages, and then 2 that are just soup.
Yeah.
I think I'm still going to have soup left over though. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Excuse me, would it be better to put me veg in first before my meatballs? You know, because of the debubbling.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Some people layer their meals, some people mix it all up, and you know, it's the debubbling will, as long as you move it a bit, it will, the air releases quite easily, I find.
Right. Get these through our space. We've gone off piste on you, Rosemary.
You have, yeah. I'm impressed. I know you just want a gold star. I know.
I tell you what hopefully will get me a gold star. I've changed my photo on my thing, and they're all the jars I've used today for today's canning.
So that
You know where you see participants and you see a little picture of them or a little initial?
yeah.
I've changed mine to the jars that I've used today.
Oh, right. Oh, up there. Oh, I see what, yeah, Trev's sort of moving the mouse so I pay attention to where you're talking about. But I know actually why I've muddled you up by doing this is because I want to show you a quick meal with what we're making, and so I kind of moved away from the soup as we did soup last time, but that's no good if I don't tell you, is it? But I'm impressed, you're so versatile and unfazed.
Oh.
So I don't need to add my beans, do I? Rosie?
Have you opened them?
No, I haven't.
No, well, don't, you can add those when you warm it up to eat,
Yeah,
if you want.
thank you.
I've opened mine, so I'm just planning on putting it all in.
Yep.
You're right. Flappy, won't it?
Absolutely fine.
It's all an adventure. Doing this though makes you do it, doesn't it? Because on every other Saturday, would I be here doing canning? Probably not, but it's making me get into a habit, isn't it?
Well, it's making me get into a habit as well, because we're going to open this building as a pressure canning centre so that people can come here and by appointment, because mainly we work in our jar warehouse, but they can come here and see equipment and so on. But every Saturday I'm going to be cooking our food here, so if people do come they can see something happening, and then on every other Saturday we'll be filming. So it's making me get into that routine, because you just need to do it. It doesn't take very long, and then how many meals have you got in front of you at the end of it, you know?
Well, if I think today I've used 2 jars of my chickpeas that we've done together, 2 things of veg stock that I'd made, and my passata that I made last summer that I'd got an abundance of tomatoes, and that felt really good today to know I was using those jars to do this lesson. It's really good.
The bit that I've got to get over is feeling I'm not trying hard enough at making a meal when I just open jars and put them into a dish. I've done the work, you know, and I can put my feet up with a cup of tea while it cooks, you know. But it's you know, I wish I'd known about this when my children were young, because it just would have saved so much time. And what I want to say about while I'm waiting for my canner to do what it does, and your filling jars, is again looking back at what's happened in the past years ago, and I'm talking about perhaps 400, 300, 200 years ago. Most people who lived in the right circumstances kept a pig. Even people who lived in the town would keep a pig at the bottom of the garden who ate all the rubbish from the kitchen, all the peelings and all the, you know, leftover food and everything. And then the communities would come together to, when the pig's time was up, and they'd share the work of butchering the meat and sharing, and they'd share that out, and then they'd all move on to another unfortunate pig at some point and share it again. And it kind of makes sense to concentrate the work in one big effort, really. And of course, sausages were an important part of that. That's why people made sausages, and then they cured them by hanging them up, they smoked them, they did all that sort of thing. And I know a lot of people have gone, I've never actually made sausages, but I know people do, and they go on classes and that to do it, and it's great. I mean, the more those sorts of skills you can learn, the better. But of course, I did attempt to find out about a vegetarian version of the recipe, and there isn't anything much official written down, but the things that I found on forums and so on said that the vegetarian sausages are fine to pressure can, although they can break up a bit, but the vegetarian meatballs are really quite effective. So if you've got to cook, I mean, some people have mixed diets, don't they, in the household, that, you know, you've got a child. I mean, my daughter came home, she went through the stage of wanting to, we couldn't eat any sort of tinned fish because of dolphins and all this sort of thing. Then we went through, she was gluten-free, and on it went. But if you have got people, you might, this is what I think is particularly useful with canning. It's fine if you're all eating the same thing. So if you're all vegetarian, that's great. But if one of you is and one of you isn't, and then you can kind of make the same recipe, but use slightly different ingredients as appropriate, but can it all together. And then you've kind of got all the work out of the way in one go, and it's easy then for people to all eat together, which is, I think, another sort of dying out thing, that people do eat together as a family. But this makes it easier. Or if you've got teenagers coming in and they want to eat and then go on out somewhere, they've got a sports club or something that evening, then they can take their appropriate food off of the shelf, they can heat it up and eat it, and you know they've had something great to eat if you're not around to actually supervise it. And I think that's a really important factor of all of this, because at the end of the day, if you've pressure canned ingredients, if you can't heat it up, it's safe to eat straight out of the jar. Now, you might not always want to do that, but nevertheless, it is safe. And I think that's, you know, you've got to look at the sort of the whole thing. So the time we spend preparing it and ending up with the basis, well, I've got the basis in here of 5 meals, and you're doing more because you've got your soup mix in the jars, and it just makes life a whole lot easier, I think. But oh, I think this is starting to in some signs of life. But I'll show you when we're waiting for canners to depressurize. I'll show you what we're having for supper tonight. So and I'll make it in front of you. So that's unless you hear some groans off camera. Oh, not that again. In which case it might be postponed. I don't know whether that's a reflection of my glasses or the, I don't think it's steam. I can't hear anything yet.
They look pretty hearty.
Sorry?
They look pretty hearty.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You know, and you've done all that chopping today, but you won't have to do it on 7 to 10 separate occasions. You know, I mean, it's all done. It's excellent.
Right, 3, 6, 9, 10.
You're thinking, I think.
I don't think I'll bring I put my veg in with my stock. Sorry, you can't see me. I put my veg in with my stock. I'm heating it up, but I'm not bringing it to boil because my jars have cooled down a bit.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it'll all catch up with itself. It's a Saturday afternoon slump of heat. I haven't got many jars in them, so I put some a layer of beans in or something. That's the rugby sign, I think. Okay.
10 go in.
Sorry?
Maybe 10.
10. Well,
10.
I mean, if you've got,
Have 5 little balls in each.
yeah, I mean, if you've got some beans handy, you could do some jars of beans to fill up the layer if you want to.
Oh, put the lid on
Some
now.
dry beans, and just like we did before, just top them up with hot water.
I'm going to have another session later. I always do one after this once I've got it all out. And I'm
Oh
in the
gosh. That's keen. You may have seen on the Facebook group that I've bought a digital electric canner over from the US, and I used it for the first time on Thursday. I had a day at home to do that and get to grips with it, because it has to have a transformer because it's wired for US power. So that was quite nerve-wracking for a while, but it worked really, really well. And I can see it would be great for just doing some it's not any quicker, but it kind of does it for you, but it only takes 5 jars, so it's sort of, it will have an application for lots of people who haven't got don't want to do canning for a family but still want to do some canning. But I've only used it the once, so I'm going to use it some more before I write it up and launch into it. But I was very impressed with it. It literally tells you what you've got to do next all the time and bleeps at you till you do it. So
having building work done in the summer, and I'm going to be without a kitchen for 6 to 7 weeks. So hence my keenness to get as much.
Oh yeah. Oh, you'll be in your element, won't you? Because you can just,
yes.
If you've got something you can heat things up on, or you're going to use the microwave.
Yes, yeah, we're going to have to microwave. I might just get a little hob because it's going to be so many weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're just.
I think literally all we do in our microwave now is soften the butter and pre-cook or part cook jacket potatoes before they go in the oven. Or sometimes in the air fryer. Yeah, my canner's just starting to vent, so I'm going to put on the time. But don't worry, just you go at your own speed.
I have got a little question for you.
Yeah.
I canned these earlier on in the year. It's the only time I've ever used this sort of jar.
Yeah.
I'm damned if I can get into that.
Well, can you see, has it got the little tongue shape on it?
Yeah, I've tried to pull them.
Yeah, if you get some, I'm the same because my right hand isn't very strong anyway. And if Trev's not around, if you get to do it for me, if you get some pliers and grip that tongue and turn it,
Yeah.
you can kind of, by turning the pliers, it stretches the rubber more, and you can
Okay.
hold it tighter than trying to do it with your fingers.
So they got to survive another day instead of being used because I couldn't.
Yeah, well, I tend not to put anything in there now.
No, right. It was just a jar that I'd got, and I hadn't got many jars at the time. So.
I was the same. I was the same, and I sometimes still am if that's the only jar I've got. But they're not ideal, and they take up a lot of room in the canner as well, all the fittings, and then they oxidize in the water, and you know, whatever happens to them, and the clips go off.
Yeah, it was just that I have honey in them, and it was just a way to recycle that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you can use them for all sorts of things, but I don't think they're. I mean, they're perfectly safe to use for pressure canning, but they wouldn't be my first choice.
No, I'm not using them again. I'm just using them for storing things now.
Yeah.
And these, I brought some big jars, but actually I get on much better with these little ones. And if need be, open 2 of them. I find that for me better than.
I think it's like everything else in life. You've got to make a few mistakes to learn from, and I can tell you all sorts of things, but unless it applies to your actual situation, I can't kind of cover everything for everybody. But you just need to, and you do learn pretty quickly, you know, what works and what doesn't, what needs to go in which jar, because of how you use it. And
I'm tending to use them for veg stock or beef stock now when I make a big pot of stock up.
Yeah, that's really useful. I personally like having all the elements of a meal rather than the meal in a jar, but that's how we like to live, you know.
Yeah, no, I didn't click that today, but I did one and just can some sausage meat patties like that. That'd be absolutely great. But I just got this picture in my head of we were making a.
Well, that's my fault because I didn't write the instructions properly. I'm learning this, as I said to you at the beginning. I teach the preserving class, which is my thing. Pressure canning, I kind of know more than you do, but I'm still learning a lot about it. And
if we can give you honest feedback about what's not worked for the instructions, that helps, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. I'll just go home and sob silently in the corner. No,
it makes sense to you. It's got to make sense to everyone, though, hasn't it? So
yeah.
We're managing.
Good. Yeah. Well, it helps it being not unsooted. The other one was a bit sooty, wasn't it? I know you cleaned it up. But...
I can't believe it was only a few months ago. I was terrified of this thing.
Yeah. Well, I hope come the day, you know, that your friends sort of say, oh, what's that? Or what are you doing? Or what are you talking about? You know, that you kind of get them round and show them, because the more people that pass it on, the better we'll all be. Because I think a lot of the illness that people suffer is down to what they eat, really. And not always, because I mean, I eat well, but I've had my fair share, you know. But a lot of the problems we have, and the kind of the way
it's evil the way they manufacture that food, isn't it? It should. If we were in a just society, that actually nobody would allow that to happen, because somebody needs to speak up more often, don't they, about what's happening to our food?
Yeah. But there's too much money involved in it, you see. That's the problem, and they have to hold such sway over because of the money, the power that the money gives them. But I mean, if you've been to Italy or France or Spain or Greece, people won't eat it. You know, you do. I remember we went to we were staying in Italy and we went on a boat trip to an island, and it was quite early in the day because it was a hot time of year. So you go early, and then, you know, when it's hot, you don't do anything. And I remember this breakfast, there were all these sort of tourists dotted around, and they brought the coffee, which was lovely. And then we literally got a kind of plastic sponge fingery thing in a packet thrown at us, which had apricot jam in the middle, with such sort of disdain that, how can you eat this stuff? You know, we don't, but I mean, everybody else was just, oh, this is nice, you know, and I think we threw ours away. But they literally, they provide food for tourists, but they don't eat it themselves. And I wish we were more firm about what we're prepared to eat and what we are going to reject. And if you don't buy it, they won't provide it. You know, I mean, supermarkets are full of stuff that people buy in huge quantities, and I don't know what you do about it. But
You should look.
It takes people to speak up and speak out.
yeah,
I'm just making some stock, but you should look up the Zoe, Professor Tim Spector, because that's what he's trying to do.
Oh, right. I've been trying to find that website. I did it because they used to give all the COVID figures, didn't they? And I couldn't find it.
I'll show you my book in a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the book I showed you last time, the Joanna Blythman book,
I can't even read it. I just have to keep putting it down because it's making me so cross.
It's horrendous, isn't it? But I think it's important that people do understand, you know, that a lot of the food that's out there is just chemicals.
You couldn't class it as food, could you? It's not actually classed as food, is it? Some of it.
And some of, I think, you know, whatever you think of Jamie Oliver's sort of constant reinventing of what we should be cooking, he does cook real food. He has all these sort of gimmicky ways of presenting it to try and make people do it, which I'm not sure. I don't know how effective that is, but with his campaigning in the background, I think is incredible. And it's horrific. And I think it was him, he did a lot of work on what children eat from birth to going to school. Yeah. And there was one child that they highlighted. I mean, they didn't picture her, but she was starting school and everybody was worried what she was going to do about eating, because she'd never eaten a home cooked meal. She'd only ever had takeaways, and the doorbell ringing meant it was dinner time, you know. I mean, it's just but
that's becoming very common in our society. I'm a mental health nurse, and I meet people who never eat a piece of fruit and vegetable, never eat a piece of fresh fruit or vegetable.
Yeah. Well, you know, children aren't born wanting takeaways, are they? They eat what you eat and what's in front of them. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's, as you say, it's more, it's upsetting. I find it very upsetting, and I just wish that more could be done in the communities to guide people, because if they've never been taught or never been shown it or never had it at home, they're not going to know, are they? They're not going to know anything about it. So how's our time going? 35 seconds. Good.
I'm 4 minutes behind you.
And I haven't got mine in.
Don't worry, it's not a competition or a race.
I've lost the meatball, it's on the floor.
Have you got a dog?
Yeah, I did that earlier. The dog was quicker than me.
Not the only one then.
You're never the only one. All right, I'm going to put my weight on. It's nice for me to be ahead for a change. Usually I'm waiting. You've all finished and I'm still, I can't get up. I'm quite stiff anyway, but I can't get my thumb. Yeah, I know. Can't use my thumb. Right, jiggler. And then up to pressure in a minute. Oh. I do find though that the more home cooked food you eat, or home cook style of food that you eat, I don't necessarily mean you're eating it in your own home, but that style of food, the less you can tolerate anything that's in any way artificial. And it's so that sort of cheers me up somewhat, because a lot of people are going back to cooking. I mean, again, say that for Jamie Oliver, it is home cooked family meals, isn't it? Because the rest of the catering or cooking that's on television is kind of like watching some moving art or something. You know, it's not something you're going to do, and it's just something to watch. And I used to get regular battering from people about the amount of sugar used in making jam and things like that, but nobody minds the Bake Off or anything like that, or that other, what's the other professional
Master Chef.
No, not that one, the one with the where they're all professional chefs, and they're oh, what's it called? Yeah, well, it's like Bake Off, but it's for professional chefs, and it all goes crazy, and they're building all these things out of sugar and goodness knows what, and that collapse, you know, and I just don't see the point of it, and it's such a waste of food as well, or ingredients. But
Jamie Oliver does a it's called Jules pasta, and that's made with sausage meat. It's one of these like 15-minute meals. You whiz up in your food processor. You do your carrots and onions, and you do celery, and you whiz that up with sausage meat and fry it off. And then add tomatoes and balsamic vinegar and fennel seeds. And that, I've canned that.
Yeah.
That pasta chip, but I've canned that, and that can's absolutely stunning.
Yeah. That's great. It sounds lovely.
So I was quite excited by this today, because that's sausage meat, and that tastes really good canned.
Yes. I find meat does. You know, I've done quite a bit, and I like the sausage meat balls. I mean, I know it's upsetting for people who don't eat meat to kind of constantly hear meat talked about, but I like, in the winter, I can red cabbage and beetroot and apple. I do it in the slow cooker, and then I can it for about half an hour, and then I also do like a game casserole. So I've got some bits of venison, bits of bacon, you know, chunks of bacon, and the sausage meat balls and stuffing balls in a kind of winey gravy. I don't cook it for a long time. I just sort of brown it all and mix it all together, and I can that, and I find that with the red cabbage as well, or maybe a jacket potato, depending on, you know, how energetic you've been and how much you need to eat. But they're really, really useful to kind of combine with other things, as well as, you know, use in their own right. So and I always put it in a bolognese mix now, sausage meat, because it just adds another depth of flavor, really. There's my pressure. It's up to about 5, I think. I can't see it from there. Coming up to 5, so a bit further to go. Yeah.
I'm going to have to do something tonight, because I've opened a jar. Oh no, I've got about 500 mils of veg stock that I haven't used. When you've made it yourself, it's like precious, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah. Absolutely. I keep meaning to, my first mother-in-law, she was a pressure cooker queen. I mean, I never had a pressure cooker as a sort of young wife, which I think is why I found this one so daunting, because I went straight in at the top, you know, kind of thing. And but she pressure cooked a lot of things, and she used to do oxtail in the pressure cooker, and then she'd leave it for a day and take off all the meat and skim off any fat that had formed, and then she'd cook it again the second day, and it was absolutely delicious. I'd never had it at home. My mother never cooked anything like that, and I've never eaten it as nice since. And I keep meaning to sort of get some and try it canned and see if it has the same sort of effect, because it's you can't and you shouldn't just live on the best cuts, should you? You should use everything, really, if at all possible.
But the cheap cuts are perfect for pressure.
Oh yeah.
Can you use this? I've only used this for canning. Could you use it as a big pressure cooker with a big amount of, so if you were cooking?
I think people do, yes. Yeah, but you can't do it the other way. You can't use a pressure cooker to can food.
No.
And you can use it as a water bath, of course. You know, you can just water bath, but you have to cover the jars with water then if you're going to do that. But it's perfectly all right to use in that way. So, how you getting on, Rosalind? You okay?
Hello.
Voice from the depths. I think you're really sort of game to do this, you know, on oh yeah, that looks good. Food for Life. What's the black writer? Oh, that's his name, Tim's. Yeah. Okay.
He's the chap that did the Zoe app.
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't read it all yet.
You write it down. Food for Life. What's his name?
Professor Tim Spector.
Okay.
Google him on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you a history about himself.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
I've just sealed my pressure canner. So I've just got to wait till it's come up to boil and steam for 10 minutes before I put my jiggler on.
You sound like a proper expert now, Rosalind.
I've got to catch up. The thing is, I'm using a mason bowl jar, because I've got a few anyhow.
Yeah.
And it says on the thing, when you take them out of the canner, don't twist the bands for the mason.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because the digital canner I used.
Yeah.
Of course, that's built for mason jars, really. But I got 500 ml Le Parfait, and I think I could have got 750s in there.
Yeah.
But it said when it bleeps at you and it says cool, you can undo it and take the jars out, although they're still really hot. Yeah. And it says on no account tighten the bands. So what's that about? You know, because all the recipe books, all the information is as soon as you take them out. And one of mine was really, really loose, the lid. I thought, but it's sealed okay, so I don't know. I'm not arguing with it at the moment.
Yeah. So I didn't know whether it was tightening the bands was particular with your make and the mason ball.
I don't think so, no, because all the books I've got are all American, and they will have used the ball jars. They don't use French ones, you know. So I don't know whether there's some new information, or I'll have to try and find out. I'll Google it and see what I can find. But thank you for that. That's I'm always looking for good information. And right. So you need to obviously process for the size of the jar that you've used. So it's 75 minutes for the 500 ml and 90 minutes for the litre size.
I've done litres.
Right.
I've managed 5 in the end. I got 6 ready, but
Yeah.
so, and I lost count with my meatballs in the end.
Yeah, it won't matter. It'll all be delicious, won't it? So I find that the hardest thing to do is to look at the ingredients and calculate how many jars I need, and it never works out. I always do more than I think because it's just easier not to have to stop what you're doing and find more jars. But I do find that the trickiest thing, because trying to fit it in, it won't always go in the way that you think. You can't just do it by the weight of it. It's a guide, but it's not exact, and you know.
Yeah.
But there we go.
And some of the American books with the recipes, the amounts sound so daunting.
I know. I know.
With yours, it doesn't seem daunting.
15 kilos of onions, you know, you think, good grief, I'll be there for a fortnight, you know. Yeah. I cut them down. I don't have these big mass batches because I like variety, you know. I don't need to have huge amounts of things done of one kind of thing. But I'm coming up to 10. I think I'm going to go around and look at it rather than peer over the top. Yes.
My chicken was nice. My chicken, good. Yeah, I made it into a pie.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
I did add a bit. I did cook another 2 chicken breasts just to add to it a bit. But it was nice.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch the first bit.
I did add a couple of small chicken breasts to it to make it look like it's got more meat for my husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was very nice.
Yeah. Well, now you can put in a jar of sausage meatballs. But as we go through the various things, that's what will happen. You'll have things on the shelf and you think, oh, well, I'll put one of those in. You know, you don't have to kind of follow a recipe particularly. You can just, you know, what you like to eat, and if it's all there ready. But we've got to go through it in stages to get to that point, really. But I'm going to start my timer. And what time is it now? 4. So if we have a break, and are you okay with what you're doing? You
Oh, me, I'm fine. I'll make myself a cup of tea and sort my dishes out.
Well, I'll come back about sort of 5-ish, and what I'll do, you won't be finished.
No.
Actually, if I'll come back just after 5, and then I can switch my hob off, and I'll show you what I'm gonna make with mine for supper, because I've got a jar that I made earlier in my electric canner. Just so I could do that, and then I'll just sort of show you what's in my head about putting things together to make a quick supper or whatever, and still feel that you're eating something that's really nice, and hopefully, and so yeah, we'll meet again in about just over an hour. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, welcome back. My canner has finished, so we've moved it to the other cold hob to cool down, and I'm using the hot hob that the canner was on, because I'm going to show you just a quick meal you can make. And I want you to envisage coming in from a busy day. Maybe you work, or maybe you've got, you know, animals or a garden to see to or something, and you want something for dinner. And what I've got on my table here, I've put the pan back on that I've cooked the sausage meatballs in. There's just a little bit of fat in there, and I've got a chopped onion and a couple of chopped cloves of garlic, which I'm just going to get a bit of colour into. A little bit. I'm not that fussed. I just find if you don't do this bit, that it just doesn't cook down in the dish as well if you don't cook the onion and that first. But with some things I put it all in and put it in the jar, but I've got a casserole dish here ready. Normally I would just cook the onion in the dish and that would be it, but off of my shelves, I've come in from gardening all day and I'm tired and I need a shower, and so I would take off. I've got a jar of plain chicken, I've got a jar of borlotti beans. I think they are the bigger beans. They're not butter beans, but they're bigger than the haricot ones. I've got a jar of my sausage meatballs, and I've got a jar of passata. I have opened them already because you don't really want to watch me struggling trying to get the lids off of jars of food. So I've got my onions and garlic in here just cooking for a few minutes. I'll move that over. I'm hoping this is going to be big enough to take all of this. The other thing I've got is some sourdough breadcrumbs. Now these are savoury breadcrumbs that I make. It doesn't have to be sourdough, but if you've got some ends of a loaf or crusts, or just dry them out in the oven, or if I've got the dehydrator on and doing that, I'll stick in a few slices of bread. It needs to be quite nice bread, really, not white sliced particularly, but just dry them out, and then I blitz it in the food processor with mixed herbs, put some sea salt, black pepper and a few chili flakes, and then I stick it in a jar and it will just sit there, and then I can use it as a topping on things. Or I make my own chicken Kiev. I'll get a chicken breast, put some garlic butter in the middle, because I make garlic butter from wild garlic and keep it in the freezer. So I'll take out a couple of slices of that, stick it in the chicken breast and sprinkle both sides with these savoury breadcrumbs and just pop them in the oven. I mean, that's nothing to do with canning, but it's still a quick and easy meal. Just stir these a bit and then we'll put them in the dish. And I've also got some grated cheese as well, a little bit of grated cheddar in there that I did. So what I'm going to do is put the breadcrumb with the cheese. That's what they look like in their jar. And I'm going to put a goodly amount in there and mix it with the cheese. Ready? Don't forget that's got sea salt and pepper in as well, and a few chili flakes. You don't want very many, otherwise it overpowers what you're coating, what you're using them for. Right, I'm going to put these in this dish. Going back to the sausage meatballs, when my children were young, that one of their favourite things to have was sausage pie. And little did they know, as an impoverished mother, trying to make ends meet all the time, I was stretching 2 sausages to feed a family of 4, and I'd cook the sausages and I'd cut them up, and I put them in a dish like this with a tin of tomatoes, plum tomatoes and their juice, some chopped up mushrooms, maybe a couple of rashers of bacon, and chop it all up and then top it with mashed potato like you would make a cottage pie. And I have to say, it's something I still love today. I often make it, and that I'll be using my jars of sausage balls to put in there. But it's stretched, meager ingredients, you know, to feed 4 of us quite adequately. So I've got my onions in there. I'm going to put the chicken in. Now, I'm not going to put all the juice of the chicken at the moment. You can see when you can chicken, this was just done raw and dry. It had no added liquid, and that's the amount of liquid that comes out of it. I don't want all that in there at the beginning, so I'm going to sort of see if I can lift this chicken out in one piece, which I can, and I'll leave that there for the moment. And then I'm just going to ease this apart into pieces, and you can see it's beautifully cooked. I need something else. I'll use my spatula. It just pulls apart in the chunks. I don't cut the chunks too small. I don't want it all to break up too much. And then it comes apart into quite big pieces, which is nicer to eat, I find. So there's the chicken as it's come out of the can. We might be able to, I don't know if we can zoom in on that or not. Oops. You can see what they look like. We'll be doing that at some point in the series. And then I'm going to put my beans in. Well, actually, I'll put the sausages in. Now, this is what the sausage meatballs look like in their jar. There's a little bit of fat on the top, and then the liquid, the stock, has mixed with some of the ingredients in the sausage meat, and I dare say some of the fat from the sausage meat, and made this sort of opaque gravy like liquid, which I'm going to put the whole of that in. It's sort of quite jellied, and it's all flavour. So I'm just going to spread those out. You'll see what they look like. And with that one jar, you can see it's a good amount, even if they were on their own. And all that jellied sort of stock will melt down into the rest of the dish. Then I've got my beans that we did, and that's the borlotti beans. They're going in with their juice. I am doing this fairly slowly so you can see, but if I had come in from gardening and I did want a shower, I'd be dumping these all in the dish and putting it in the oven in 5 minutes flat. So I'll spread those out a bit as well. And they look lovely, don't they? You know, I'm so impressed with these beans. It's really good. Then I've got a jar of my passata, and don't forget I mix this. I roast the vegetables first, so the onions and garlic, herbs, a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and the tomatoes. And then I roast them in the oven, and then I blitz them and can them. So I don't actually, I haven't ever done any whole tomatoes. I must do, because I absolutely loved tin tomatoes, but this is going in as well as the sort of sauce. So I'm not going to add any other seasoning or herbs, because everything I've put in so far has, you know, is complete in itself, and I think you can probably overdo it. So that's going in. That's my 4 jars I've grabbed off the shelf. I'm just going to ease that passata down into the base of the casserole. I think I will put the chicken liquid in. I wanted to see how much juice there was from the beans and the sausages. And the passata. I didn't want it all sort of swimming in liquid, but they'll all absorb more liquid as it cooks. So there we have a hearty meal, which would be enough for 4 people, with a jacket potato or something, or plain boiled potatoes actually is traditional, because this is like a cheats cassoulet. I know you know some people have duck and all that sort of thing in it, but basically I just do what I do here. I might, if I've got it, put some pieces of bacon in as well, just for added flavour. But I mean, there's going to be plenty of flavour in there. And then my cheesy breadcrumby topping, I think really traditionally it would just be breadcrumbs, but I'm just going to put that on the top, sprinkled over. And sort of even it out a bit to get it covered. And that will go straight into the oven when we get back from this. And supper is done. So you can make up your own versions of what ingredients, you know, as we build a stock of ingredients on the shelf, you could make it a vegetarian one. You don't have to put meat in. I wouldn't call it a cassoulet, but you know, if you're just cooking for your family, it doesn't matter what it's called, but you could put a mixture of vegetables. Like I've got this is the ratatouille I make every year, and you can see I leave the vegetables quite chunky and big pieces of pepper and so on. And I either make curry out of this by doing what I've just done with the onions and garlic and curry powder, or curry paste, or maybe curry spices. I put garam masala in there as well, and I just dry fry it for a little while and mix it with the ratatouille. But you could do that same sort of base in the cassoulet without the curry, and put some beans in as well, some of the dried beans, and put the topping on, or you could put a potato topping on it. It's just that fast, you know. Take them off the shelf, empty into the dish, and finish it off however you feel like it. Later on in the series, we'll be doing potatoes, so it might even be that you take the potatoes off the shelf as well. You can't pressure can mashed anything because it's too dense for the heat to get through reliably, but you can things, if you see what I mean. You could can potatoes that you then heat through and then mash them once you've taken them out of the jar. So there's all sorts of ways, and I just wanted to show you, you know, how quick and simple it is to put together something that's quite impressive, really. You know, it smells fantastic, yeah. So I'll put the lid on for now, and that's going home, and we'll eat that for supper tonight. So I hope. There's somebody says they don't feel like it. I'll put my ratatouille back. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. But equally, again, if you're catering, cooking for a family, you know, if you've got to not be there for whatever reason, and we could go through 101 reasons why you wouldn't be there when the family needed to eat, to leave those instructions is quite simple. You can leave 4 jars out, or say, take this jar and that and put it in a dish and put it in the oven. You know, they don't have to faff about putting breadcrumbs and cheese on the top unless they want to. But it you know, a jacket potato in the oven with it. You could start it off in the microwave, then pop it in the oven side by side, and there's dinner. So I just wish I'd known about it years ago instead of all that. The freezing, because I do think the trouble with freezing absolutely everything is the ice crystals work on the food in different ways and break the enzyme. You work with the enzymes to break the food down, so it doesn't necessarily reheat the same as it should. And I think the chicken is particularly beautiful once you've canned it. It's just really tender, and it doesn't have that sort of boiled flavour that you sometimes get with even when we sometimes get the farm box I have, they do ready meals, which are you know, really nice ones made by a butcher that we know. But even that, sometimes I think, oh, this chicken tastes a bit, you know, it's because it's been frozen. But what temperature and how long do you cook in the oven? Well, it depends on your oven, but I'd say about what, 180. Our oven, unless you do it at 180 to 200, the oven doesn't heat very well. So I would say about 180 for no more than half an hour. At 180 would be what, gas about 4. You don't want it you want to heat it through thoroughly. It's not unsafe to eat as it is, but it wouldn't be pleasant. But you want it more than warm. You know, you want to just cook it, but it doesn't need cooking, because you've already done that. You're just heating it through and finishing it off, really, and having your shower and your glass of wine or whatever. So I think this is clicking, but I don't think it's not going to cool down yet. But it's impressive, I think, how it oh yeah, I've got the oven temperatures here. So 180 is gas mark 4. I don't think you'd want it higher than that, because it needs to heat all of it. But you could put it in the microwave as well, but you wouldn't crisp up the breadcrumbs and cheese if you wanted to. So you know your appliances best, I would think. But that's roughly it, because you're not actually needing to cook anything. I can't see any other questions at the moment. How are we getting on there? You've switched off now, Jane?
Yeah, I've just switched off.
Hmm.
Just putting my next lot in jars, that when all this is cooled down, I'll do the next one.
You're really keen. Yeah, well, it's good, because then you haven't got to do anything else for a couple of weeks, have you? It's all done. How about you, Rosalind? You've got long to go? No, you're muted at the moment.
Hello. I've got 32 minutes to go.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's good. I do find these breadcrumbs useful for loads of things. They really, I've used them a lot. I devised it all when we had this as a little shop, and I used to sell them, but didn't really use them a lot myself. And I thought, well, that's just stupid. So I started using them, and I just put them in lots of things. So right, I can turn this off now. Oh, I've got 4 jars released out of captivity, so I'll have to fill those up again. I've got some chicken at home to cook, actually, some chicken thighs, which I'm going to do the same as the chicken breast, just put them in the jar and pressure can them. I'm not going to add any liquid or any seasoning or anything like that. So then I know when they come out, they're good to go in any dish that I need them for. And I do find the curries, though, especially the vegetable curries, are very, very good and easy to do. Again, you can do that in, well, it's the same thing. I've fried the spices, dry fry the spices, or the curry powder or paste or whatever I'm using, depending on how hot I want it to be. And well, my lock's gone down, so that's good. I can open it in a minute. And then I just leave it in a biggish pan to slowly simmer while the rice cooks. By the time the rice is cooked, you know, you're ready to eat it. It's all together. Find my towel to put out. Yeah, take off the weight. Put the other washer back on. I think you'll probably have to open this. Might need to put it back then. Which
You want to do it?
yeah, mind your face, do it away from you.
Or just release it and you can lift it.
That's it, tip it away. From your face.
The towel's on.
Hmm?
You've got it.
Yeah. Right, just let it steam itself for a bit. Because it's brand new, it's quite stiff actually getting getting it done up and getting it undone again. So right. That's that. Take off the lid. Let's see what we've got. Unlike Jane, I haven't got another lot to load in. It's still boiling away, as you'd expect. Good. So that's it. Absolutely boiling. And that's why I didn't make mine as a soup, because I wanted to show you the cassoulet. But if you've got it as a soup, like I think it was Rosalind that did the chicken pie, you could do the same thing. You could thicken the soup with the sausage meat in it and put it in a dish and put a potato topping on. It wouldn't necessarily need to be mashed potato. You could slice potatoes and put over the top and put some cheese on. So a soup base is good. You don't always have to eat it as soup, though, is what I'm saying. And the other thing you can make, instead of potatoes all the time, if you've got some plain yogurt around, if you mix plain yogurt with flour just in a bowl, it won't go like pastry. It will be quite sticky. Just mix it enough, and then with like a spoon and a fork, just take out spoonfuls and drop that onto the top of your dish of whatever you've got in the dish. You know, if you're going to put the sausage soup in there, you can put the yogurt dumplings on the top, with or without cheese in them, or dried herbs, or anything like that, any flavoring that you want. You can easily make, you don't have to make dumplings that you've got to sort of mix, or pastry toppings or scone toppings or anything like that. You can just drop these yogurt dumplings on. They will spread out, they won't stay as round shapes, but they make a nice sort of crusty topping on something like this, which again is really, really quick to do. Put some flour in, mix in enough yogurt to just bring it all together. You could put some salt and pepper in if you wanted to. You could put, what I like to do as well sometimes is to make that mix and use like a dry stuffing mix, like you would make stuffing, you know, like a Paxo stuffing or something like that. If you've got something like that in a jar or a packet, you can mix some of that in, which gives a nice texture. Some of it that goes a bit crunchy on the top. You get a nice savory flavor to it, and you can just put that on as the yogurt dumplings. And if you make that mixture slacker, actually, any time, the yogurt and the flour, you can fry them as flatbreads on a griddle, dry fry them, or in a pan, or you can make pancakes out of them. And you know, it's a very versatile, quick thing without a lot of hoo-ha. I'm all for the less hoo-ha in life. You know, the less washing up I have to do of things I've had to mix, the better I like it. So that's a one bowl thing that you can just do really, really quickly. So I'm pleased with those. I hope you will be. I hope you enjoy making things with them, trying out different things. You could make them put them in a tomato sauce on pasta.
It's raining.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. No, I thought someone was asking me a question.
No, my noisy husband came back, that was all. I'll mute it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope you'll find other ways to use it, and you can give us feedback on what you've done. Or I mean, you might not try them for a few weeks. You might like to leave them in the jar and think, oh, I've done sausage meat, you know, that kind of thing. I know what it's like when you've just made it, you don't want to be opening it again. But you know, over time, I think once you build a stock and store of all these things, you're just going to find it so much easier to quickly make food. And that keeps, please don't think I'm being critical, but it keeps you away from that fast food fix that you think, no, I haven't got this or I haven't got that. You've got jars there, mix them in the oven, done. You know, less time it would take to go and buy pizzas or something. You know, it's made our life very much easier because we have a very busy life and not much free time in the week. And it's kind of transformed us into eating what we like, and eating it quickly and eating it healthily. So I hope you find the same. Okay, so next time we'll be doing a mince mix. So it's the same sort of deal really, but we'll be cooking the mince, we'll be jarring it, and then looking at ways again that you can easily make that into, well, a huge number of things. But speed is of the essence as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's having done the canning, I don't then want to spend hours and hours making it into something else. It needs to be like the cassoulet, there, done in the oven. Okay, I hope that's helpful for you.